Call to order for the Watertown City Council meeting for January 17th of 2023. Please rise while Jody Brinkman, the chaplain at Prairie Lakes Hospital, leads us in prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, as we come before you this evening, we wish to thank you for all that you do for us as a community and to ask for your guidance, your wisdom, and your support as this meeting is held. Please help our leaders and those attending to engage in meaningful discussion, allowing for closer connection with the topics to be addressed and to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of this community being served. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And before we do the pledge, I will ask everyone to just give a moment of silence for Irv Hinderaker. He was never on the council, but he pretty much did everything else at one time in this town over his 101 years, and just an overall fantastic gentleman. So, just a moment. All right, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Finance Officer Bob Zine, are we all here?
Should I? Okay, I'll start. Bueller? Bueller? Danforth?
Here.
Helene? Here. Paulson? Shuddy?
Here.
Tupper?
Here.
Billhauer?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, quorum is established. The chair will entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Motion made by Councilman Danforth, second by Councilman Bueller. Any conversation on this? Councilman Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a comment. Lisa or Chris, would you explain why there is no public hearing required for the special event liquor license, just for those that might be looking at the agenda and wondering why there's no public hearing for it?
Okay, so if the applicant for the special event one already has a current license, then no public hearing is required for that license. Yep.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? With that, the motion is to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Now is the time for public comments. If anyone is here who would like to address the council on something that is not on tonight's agenda, now is your time to do so. Just please rise, make sure the green button is lit up, and announce who you are.
Deborah, I think you got to push that little button on that thing. Is it?
Yeah. Oh, now it's green. I'm Deborah Horton with the Watertown Senior Activity Center. And on behalf of our seniors there, we'd like to thank the police department, the city council, and the street department for their cleaning of our parking lot. It is atrociously great right now. It's adjacent to the senior center, and I mean, we really appreciate it.
Our handicapped really.
Yeah, the handicapped people that come in and use the center, it's so much easier for their walkers and wheelchairs. So thank you again. We appreciate your help.
We're glad that it's getting used and lots of people are coming. So That's great for the community. And thank you for the kind words as well.
My name's Barry Grunke, and I'd like to thank Randy Tupper for going above and beyond for us to get our flag that we wanted. He contacted the American Legion and worked with them, and they worked with us, and we got our American flag. Thank you, Randy.
Truly my pleasure.
All right, thank you very much. Any further public comments? I'll close public comments, open it up. Chair will now entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Motion made by Councilman Vilhauer, second by Councilman Bueller. Any conversation on this? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item A is a presentation and acceptance of the 2021 audit from William Neal and Company. And for this, we will go to our finance officer, Kristen Bobzine.
Thank you, Mayor. Before the council tonight will be Troy Heeb with William Neal to present the 2021 audit. So these are just kind of, the council has already been given the detail of the audit, but this is just to kind of go over and let the public see what happened in that audit. So with that, I'll hand it over to Troy. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks. First, I'd like to apologize for missing last meeting. Sorry, I know Glenn was really disappointed in that, but he's probably the only one. So, at the conclusion of the audit, we are required to communicate to the governing board information related to our audit. And this communication is outlined in the letter addressed to both the City Council and Utility Board that I believe you received in your board packet. I just wanted to point out a few things in that letter, I guess. One is that there were no new accounting policies adopted or changes in existing policies during the year. We are also required to communicate any accounting estimates that are sensitive because of their significance to the financial statements and because of the possibility that the future events affecting them may be significantly different from those expected. And those sensitive estimates are the major estimates were like the pension plan, the other post-employment benefit plan, and the landfill closure, post-closure costs. There was a change in accounting estimate. It's described in Note 4C to the financial statements. It would be the audit report. The city had to report the effects of the new policy adopted by the South Dakota Public Share Alliance regarding member departures. This resulted in eliminating the deposit on the financial statements, which in the past, if a member left the alliance, they would receive a refund on their portion of what vested portion of their balance. Well, they changed the policy now that when they don't pay that out, what they do is they'll cover any liabilities that occur after you leave. So that's a significant change, and it did affect we had to make actually almost like a prior period adjustment to adjust for those. So also uncorrected and corrected misstatements. Professional standards require us to accumulate all known and likely misstatements identified during the audit, other than those that we consider trivial, and communicate them to the appropriate level of management. And the attached schedules, which were included with that letter you received, summarize those uncorrected misstatements. Management has determined that their effects are immaterial both individually and in aggregate to the financial statements, so therefore no adjustments were made. As a result of the audit procedures, we did detect material misstatements which were corrected by management, and those are actually listed under the correct and uncorrected misstatements in that letter. So I wasn't going to go through them unless someone had a question on those. Other audit findings and issues. The results of the test disclose an instance of noncompliance and other matters that is required to be reported under government auditing standards, and this is described in the schedule of current audit findings and question costs, which is page 151 of the audit report. And this actually summarizes the audit results. An unmodified opinion was issued on the financial statements for each opinion unit. There were no material misstatements or significant deficiencies disclosed by our audit. Our audit did disclose an incident of noncompliance, which was material, and this relates to the adoption of a budget. There wasn't an adoption of a budget for the Capital Projects Fund, which state law requires a budget to be adopted for all funds. Since the city did expend more than $750,000 in federal awards, we were required to perform a single audit and test compliance requirements applicable to those major programs. And the major programs were the Airport Improvement Program, the capitalization grants for clean water state revolving funds. We issued an unmodified opinion. There were no material weakness or significant deficiencies, and our audit did not disclose any audit findings that are required, that are required to be reported. The audit has been approved by the South Dakota Department of Legislative Audit. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you. We will open it up for questions from the council. Councilman Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to, you use the term unmodified, Troy. Do you want to explain to the civilians
Yeah.
out here what that means?
An unmodified is like a clean opinion. Nothing was found, so.
Okay, and that's good.
Yeah, that's good, yes.
Just a comment that I'd like to make is, I don't think we give the audit itself enough, I'm not sure what word I want to use, enough publicity. Maybe that's not quite the right word. This is the only real connection that we have between staff and council and and an outside entity, so that the public is aware of that someone is looking over our shoulders on a fairly comprehensive basis. So it's important that the public is aware of that and knows that that is happening. And maybe it's because I'm coming from that profession myself, but this is a very important aspect of our financial oversight within the community.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none? Okay, we will take a motion to accept the, all right. We have a motion made by Councilman Beeler and seconded by Councilman Tupper. Paulson. Well, I thought I saw multiple, so anyway. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Items B, C, and D are all very similar, all application for new retail licenses to Casey's. They're at different locations, but they're all the same general entity. So I'm going to allow our finance officer, Kristen Bobzien, the latitude to speak to all three at this time. I will, however, have to take each one up individually for a vote. Finance Officer Bobzien.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yes, as stated before the council tonight is 3 separate new retail on-off sale wine and cider licenses for the 3 Casey's locations. If you remember, they did come before the council already for their malt beverage, so now they did want to come back and do the wine and cider. So everything's in order. Notice the hearing was done. All fees have been paid, so everything's in line on our end. So if there's any questions, I can try to answer them.
Thank you. Chair will open a public hearing on item B. Is there anyone who would like to testify on item B? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close the public hearing and open it up for council action. Do I have a motion to approve this application? Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Any conversation on this, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve item B, the application for the wine and cider license. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item C, I will open up a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on item C? I'll close the public hearing. I will open it up for a council action. Do I have a motion to approve the application? Motion made by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Paulson, was it, or Tupper? Paulson. Any conversation on this? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the application. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item D, open up a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this? I'll close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Any conversation on this? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item E is an approval of Resolution 23-02, classification of salaries for 2023 exempt staff, elected officials, and part-time staff. Our city manager, Amanda Mack, will explain this.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a required action. Annually, we post the salaries of all of our employees and elected officials. What you have in front of you are the exempt positions, so non-union positions, council and mayor, and our part-time staff. This does reflect the 5% cost of living adjustment that the council approved, as well as the step movement for those that are eligible, which is an additional 2%. And I would stand by for any questions.
Thank you very much. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the resolution. Motion made by Councilman Paulson, seconded by Councilman Vilhauer. Conversation on this, council. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to point out that I think that the increases that we've seen in the past few years have gone a long ways into getting applicants and maintaining some of our employees. So I think we've moved in the right direction. I think there's still room to go. I don't know how to word that properly, but I do think that this is good, and I think everything's looking pretty good right now.
All right. Any further comments, council? The motion is to approve the resolution. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item F is an approval of Resolution 23-03, classification of salaries for 2023 non-exempt staff. City Manager Mack will tell us more.
Thank you, Mayor. These, as you mentioned, are the non-exempt staff. So these are our employees who are covered by the Watertown Police Officers Association, the International Association of Firefighters, and AFSCME. You all approved the collective bargaining agreements here a few weeks ago. Again, it's the 5% cost of living adjustment, and then for those eligible employees, the 2% step movement. And I would stand by for any questions.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the resolution. Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Danforth. Any conversation on this, Council? Councilman Danforth.
I'll address this with Amanda if I can. Amanda, on the schedule, it always lists the grade. Do we have defined pay ranges within that, hourly ranges?
We do, and the matrix is also attached. Oh, maybe not. It was for the exempt staff, but we have the wage range for each grade, which would be the steps. So steps 1 through 15 are the range for each position classification.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't see it here, and I was just curious if that could be added. So if it just got missed on this one, that would be.
Yeah, we can add that. I apologize for that. It was on the other one.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the resolution. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item G is authorization for the police department to hire a full-time permanent officer due to an officer on military leave. Our city manager, Amanda Mack, will tell us more, or should I go straight to
That's
Chief?
fine.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Toomey is here as well and can provide some additional information. A while ago, you all approved the creation of a permanent officer, of a temporary officer position to help fill the gap when we did have officers who were out specifically on military leave. What we are finding is difficulty in filling a temporary, albeit full-time position. And we continue to have a transition of officers in the police department. What this action does is takes that temporary position and moves it to a permanent position with the understanding that as officers transition out of the organization, which is natural and happens within police departments, we would not fill the next vacancy. We have an officer who's out on 14 months of military leave. We have 3 or 4 officers out in training right now out in Pier, and we are pretty short-handed with the PD. So we'll be +1 for a little while with the understanding that we would just not fill any future vacancies for one position. And with that, if Tim has anything additional to add, I'll turn it over to him.
No, thanks. That wraps it up. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, City Manager. Chair will entertain a motion to authorize the hiring. Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Any conversation on this, Council? Councilman Tupper.
So if I understand this right, let's say the next person that retires, that would be a non-filled position at that point. So we know probably by the time the other next gentleman gets back, or lady or gentleman, I should say, that would probably happen within, you probably got a couple retirees every year, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So it is kind of a part-time fill, but making it a full-time position for that individual to open up that employee pool a little bit farther, so.
That's correct. Thanks.
Any further comments? Hearing none, the motion is to authorize the hiring. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item H is an approval of the amended purchase agreement from Sanitation Products Incorporated for 2 solid waste collection trucks. Our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye, will tell us more.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a formality in dealing with price escalations that we've seen recently for 2 garbage trucks, 2 solid waste hauling trucks. We had entered into a contract, a purchase agreement, in early 2022 for 2 new trucks. These were through a Sourcewell bid for both the truck, the body and chassis, and then the necessary equipment that goes on there for loading of the trucks, the compactor and everything like that on them. That contract that was signed included some language that related to any price escalation that we'd be responsible for if we were not able to get 2023 model trucks and we were pushed into the 2024 model, which is essentially what's happened. Our order has been, they go in the hopper and in an order, and our order is now surfacing, and it's apparent we're going to get the 2024 model trucks. So now we have to deal with the price escalation for those 2024 model trucks. It is a fairly substantial increase. It's a little over $50,000 per truck more that we're needing to approve. Now, the solid waste fund, being an enterprise fund, it can adequately float that additional expense. It's less than ideal, but it's the nature of the position that we're in. So the original purchase price for both trucks was $580,610. That'll be increased to $693,548. So you're going from $580,000 to $690,000 for those two trucks. So this being an increased expense in the solid waste budget, it's appropriate that the council act on this to give formal approval, and then we would get our name solidified on these trucks to ensure the 2024 truck order is carried out. With that, I'll stand by for any questions the council might have.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the amended agreement. Motion made by Councilman Paulson, seconded by Councilman Shetty. Councilman Paulson will begin the comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple comments on this, or questions. One is based on the trade-in value. If we eventually get our own city mechanic or someone that can do work, we're getting a trade-in value of $20,000, which seems almost not worth it. So if we do eventually go to a full-time mechanic, would it be beneficial to keep these trucks in the future and use it as parts instead of trading in? I don't know if that's the case or not. I'm just asking the question because $20,000 seems really light on a $600,000 purchase.
Are you in the market for a used vehicle? City Manager Mack, would you like to answer that?
Well, my dad is a mechanic, but I am not. I didn't get that skill set from him. I think it really depends on the vehicle, on the piece of equipment. There may be value in keeping something and using it for parts. There may not. I think we can't really say as a blanket statement that, yeah, we should keep it all. We got to look at it on an individual basis. I'm willing to bet that these are of such an age and use that there really is no value even in parts for them. I'm making an assumption on that, and Heath might have more detailed information, but it's certainly something if we do move to a fleet maintenance program like we've talked about, just collectively across the organization, that we would be mindful of.
Okay, and then just one other comment. This does seem like a big increase, but from my experience, we just ordered 2 new trucks, and we saw a 20% increase on each truck. And that was 2023 models, so this doesn't seem out of line from what we're seeing for price increases on machines like this.
Thank you. Councilman Shetty.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question on what's the life cycle, I guess, of whomever may know the answer for these trucks as far as rotating them in and out. And are there more trucks, I guess, in the next year or two? Again, is it an every year deal, or is it every few years a truck comes up for turning it around?
Manager Mack or Director Von Eye? Director Von Eye?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councilman Shetty. I don't know the exact rotation we're on right now. I do know that we're 3 trucks in the queue or that are actively ordered. We've actually got a separate issue that we're working on from a truck that was ordered in 2019 that we're having troubles getting that vendor to carry out that delivery of that particular purchase. Again, a whole nother discussion. But with these 2, that's 3 that now are in the cycle for replacement. I know, obviously based on the year, these trade-ins, a 2012 and a 2013, we pushed 10 years out of them. And I'd say that's getting to the limit on something that's as mechanically involved as a garbage truck is. A lot of hydraulics. You got the compactor. You've got everything that goes with solid waste management that goes into these trucks. highly mechanical pieces of equipment, a lot of room for failure and breakage and maintenance and things like that. So I'd say we normally wouldn't like to push it this long, but we've made use out of it as long as we can. To Councilman Paulson's point, if we go to a centralized fleet, I could see some benefits in that. I think that because of the nature of these vehicles, they're kind of beat up, used up, almost pretty much milked for everything they're worth. So there might be a little bit of salvage value in them, but maybe not a lot for these particular kinds of pieces of equipment.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Council? Councilman Danforth.
What do the companies do with our trade-in?
That's a good point. Yeah, a lot of times, like Kristen just whispered to Mayor, she's got a good point. A lot of times it's the chassis that's reusable. They'll strip the truck box off, and they're using the frame and sometimes the cab and the engine for rebuilding or creating a new piece of equipment out of it. Sometimes a new garbage truck, sometimes something completely different. So that truck body is probably primarily the value that we're getting out of these used rigs.
Have we ever consider doing any kind of a refurbishment on any of these? I mean, we're talking about, what are they, 300 and almost 350 grand or whatever they are each, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So have we ever looked at refurbishing versus buying new and know what that cost might be?
I have not in my tenure here in Watertown. I can't speak for Mike Berger, the superintendent of solid waste, but I could check in with him on that and see if they've ever explored that option in his tenure.
Yeah. I know that we have had some of our ambulances rebuilt. We buy new and we have rebuilt, and I'm just curious if that concept, at least with some of this, wouldn't work there as well. So, because obviously if they're giving us 20,000, if it really is worth that, then they're doing something with it. And you wonder if maybe we shouldn't be looking at doing something like that, having that redone. So just something to think about as we go forward.
Councilman Tupper.
Kind of being from the automotive industry, I mean, I don't sell garbage trucks, but the $20,000 trade-in range, if those things are making 8-10 years, I don't see a real value of keeping them. I mean, even if we do go with centralized, if we start doing that, all of a sudden we'd end up with a salvage yard full of garbage trucks and fire trucks and ambulances and police cars. But hopefully we do go to that form, but I don't see a value in keeping them. I will bring up one thing because I'm the board president of Community Transit. We used to put our used buses out on the street, put a for sale sign on them. We'd get maybe $1,000, maybe $15,000. We looked into a website that we can actually put them on that website. They went from $15,000 to getting bids all the way up to $20,000, $25,000. So that might be one thing the city might want to look into, and I can share that information. But I agree that the 20,000, there ain't a whole lot left of those trucks. And when we do an ambulance, we're putting a new chassis underneath a refurbished box. The only value in these trucks is the chassis because the box is pretty well shot. I just don't see spending, probably the biggest part of that $300 and some $1,000 is the mechanical part of the box and the refuge part of it. So I don't see, it'd still be worth looking into, but I don't think that's going to be a great way to go. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, Council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the amended agreement. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item I is a presentation of the National Flood Insurance Program Community Rating System. Our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye, will give us this.
Thank you, Mayor. I will ask for Brandy Hanton, the Community Development Manager, to join us in this conversation. She'll give a brief overview of our compliance with the pre-disaster mitigation plan. This information sharing with the council is a requirement of our National Flood Insurance Program to be part of the community rating system. That CRS is what gives us reduced flood insurance rates for the entire community. our involvement in that program requires us to follow a whole litany of things, practices that we have to carry out throughout the year in and year out. And then we're audited every so many years based on our follow-up with those requirements from FEMA. So Brandy she has a certified floodplain management certificate, along with the assistant city engineer Justin Peterson, and the two of them help under the city engineering role to be the floodplain administrator for the city. So Brandy's working on the report here to FEMA, and she's been cranking out a lot of data that's required to be submitted to them in order to sustain and retain our community rating system rating level that we're at. She'll also share some good news as part of this discussion as far as an improvement in our rating for the community of Watertown. So with that, I'll hand it off to Brandy.
All right, thank you, Heath. And so, as Heath was stating, the City of Watertown participates in the community rating system, which I'll refer to as CRS, and FEMA does like to use acronyms, so there can be a lot of that. So we do that to implement discounts to flood insurance policy premiums. And then, so the more activities that we are implementing, the better the discount is. And so then that's what I'll get to. That's the second half, because we went through a verification cycle visit last year, and then we did improve our rating. And so then that happens every 5 years. So you just they come back, FEMA comes back, and they look at our program and see what we're implementing, see if we've improved it. So that's where sharing this progress report to council is a part of that annual recertification. So you're basically just proving that you are implementing all of the projects that you are getting credit for. And so then the progress report actually gives an overview of the pre-disaster mitigation plan, which if you remember, we are currently working with First District on updating that, because it will expire this year in April, I believe. And so if you remember, Peyton with First District came and gave an update on some of the discussions that we've had as far as the updates. And because basically the hazard mitigation plan is outlining all of the natural disasters that can cause harm to our critical infrastructure. And then this progress report is specifically focusing on the floodplain activities, being that CRS is through FEMA. So that's why if you read through the progress report, it does only touch on the floodplain projects that are outlined in the pre-disaster mitigation plan. And then, so we should hear back from FEMA by March, and then that will come back to council for approval for the updated pre-disaster mitigation plan. So that is an overview of just this portion. Getting back to our improvement on our class rating. So like I was saying, every 5 years, FEMA comes and does the verification cycle visit. So you do a more extensive compilation of all of the activities that you're doing and proving that once again, but to a greater extent than we do annually. And then they also come and kind of do an audit of all of our floodplain management program. And drive around, we look at properties, just make sure that everything is in check. And so then from that, then we did improve our score from a class 8 to a class 7. And so when we entered the CRS program in May of 2017, so that's why the 5 years, we came in at a class 8. And then, and class 9 is actually the lowest. It's backwards. So even though it's the highest. So class 9 would be your entering into the CRS program. And then, so we were a class 8, and then now we're a class 7. So we're making progress. Class 1 would be the best, but we are the highest class in South Dakota at class 7. And so what that means is now instead of a 10% discount, so every class that you improve on, you get a 5% discount on flood insurance premiums when they are through the NFIP through the National Flood Insurance Program. So a federally backed mortgage that's in the floodplain would need to have the flood insurance. And so then what that means for the community and why we implement this is just because of the savings then. And obviously with the 3 watersheds and the 2 lakes that Watertown has, as we are Watertown, have a lot of water, and a lot of people that are impacted by floodplain. So this just gives an incentive, or not an incentive, but a discount to our community members for us as a city implementing these floodplain management, this floodplain management program, and doing more to always to increase our program and just make it better, and doing that all for the effort of seeing some discount. So with that, I will, and that will become effective April, I believe, of this year.
If I could
Let me
add
just confirm.
a couple words to that, Brandy. One, just to point out what you emphasized there a minute ago, that the Class 7 is the best rating any South Dakota community has at this point. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we were at Class 8. You know, the lower that class number goes, the better off you are, the cheaper your flood insurance premiums are. I'd also wanted to note, too, that this is kind of a balance that the community helps drive as far as these floodplain regulations are concerned. We as a community decided at some point in time in the past to go ahead and be part of the NFIP program, which makes good sense for Watertown and the extensive floodplain that we have. Sometimes we as staff receive discussion and feedback, and sometimes maybe a little pushback about some of the regulations we are required to administer, like flood proofing and things of that nature, floodplain development permits. So these regulations do add a few layers of extra requirements to perform development within the community. Building of houses, building of commercial, industrial, anything in the floodplain, everything in that footprint are affected by these regulations. So it is really a community-driven decision that I just wanted to stress that point too. Some of these activities that FEMA allows us to offer and perform are kind of low-hanging fruit. They don't really impact development a lot. And so we as staff, we're always sensitive to that too as we proceed to carry out additional tasks in order to lower that rating all the more, again, to help benefit the entire community on their rates for flood insurance. So it's that balance that we try to carry out, of course, with council's ultimate approval on the level we go to and the extent that we go to in administering floodplain regulations. So that's all I wanted to add to Brandy's discussion.
Thank you very much. There's no action necessary on this, so we will just go straight to discussion from the council. Councilman Danforth.
Brandy, are we able to correlate that improvement in our classification to dollars? When we say it's a 5% reduction, what does that mean community-wide if we...
So actually, I do have a slide that I could pull up. If I can get them, actually, I might not be able to. If I can get to the end drive. Where else would I have that? That it does actually. So another thing too is that FEMA recently changed their insurance policies to a risk rating 2.0. So they updated their program. So, and I wish that I had that slide because that would be really helpful. And I should have thought ahead on that. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, all the efforts failed there. I cannot locate it, but if it is okay, we can share that. It's a PowerPoint presentation that I think I shared. I'm not sure at which meeting, but if we can share that at a later date with you guys. But kind of going back to the offset that it has then. So when I had a meeting with FEMA, and when they were doing this, when they were implementing this new insurance policy with the risk rating 2.0, and so with our increase in class and then discount, additional 5% discount, so right now we're at a 15% discount, they saw that that would really offset any increase that this new policy would have, just because it uses a different threshold, I guess, for where they set their policies. So before there were all, like there was, and I'm not an insurance agent, but they had different groupings that they would fall into. So if you were a pre-firm building, you would get some sort of relief. Now they were just going to take a building from what it was at the elevation it's at. So I wish that I could show that table and give you some real dollar amounts, but at least for what this new policy or insurance program would bring, we should, most of our policyholders should be offset with the increase now. That.
But, you know, an offset is what it is. It still saves our community individuals money. But it'd be interesting to know our efforts. We know our efforts go from an 8 to a 7, but you know, this body is mostly functioning with dollars when it comes to those types of things. So that's an interesting number for us to have for a rough estimate. So
yeah, well, and so basically it's and whatever the premium is, it's 15% off of that for each individual policy. And before it was 10% off. So if that makes it clear, sorry that I got so in the mud with that.
Councilman Villauer?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions. First of all, kudos to all those involved in, you know, improving our rating here. But to me, 8 to 7 sounds great, but and we're the best in the state. What's it take to get from a 7 to a 6, 5, whatever? Is kind of, I see down roll in the back. Is it kind of like the ISO 2 rating versus 1 in that regard, or what do we have to do to get better? Or even better?
It really, and Heath, are you okay with? Okay. It's really a matter of and kind of as Heath has referenced, there are some low-hanging fruit that you can implement any activity and gain more points, and without really probably having to take a lot of extra work as far as staff goes. The thing about it though is we've just been, like, as far as implementing, we've been able to manage and then do some additional activities to gain points, but it's just a matter of being able to allocate some time to it and really look at our program and what we can do to continuously improve it, which I think would be a goal of all of ours, but it's just a matter of making sure that, you know, we have time to allocate and trying to, you know, just manage our day-to-day workload, but we do keep that in the back of our mind.
Brandy, could you give a couple just simple examples of what some of these activities include, and maybe some of the ones that we haven't done yet, but we're eyeing as low-hanging fruit, just as an example?
Yeah. And
sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. So the low-hanging fruit that I was eyeing, we grabbed. So that's how we got into the Class 7. So it's just a matter of taking the time now that we have done we've done the 5-year cycle. So now it would just be picking out new activities. And so some examples of what we would do to gain points would be, we send letters out to, and we're already doing these. I don't have any of the, what we're looking at potentially implementing. But it would be like sending letters to an area surrounding properties that if there's been a property that has experienced repetitive loss, so then sending out letters about letting them know how to mitigate their flood risks or just things that they can do, and then to be in touch too with getting a hold of the city for any development purposes. Otherwise, anytime, even something as simple as keeping a log every time that we talk to somebody about a floodplain property. Gosh, some off the top of my head here. We also, we collect elevation certificates for building permits of properties that are in the floodplain, and then we submit those to FEMA for their review, so that they know, and that's an annual thing, so that they know that we're properly managing new development and with the building permits, so that they're.
Follow-up, Councilman?
Yeah, follow-up question. I'm not sure who to address this to. Are these premium adjustments automatic? In other words, does the homeowner have to do anything to make sure they're getting them?
No, they shouldn't.
Well, the reason I'm asking the question is, again, referencing the ISO 2 rating, I was told, early on when we first got that rating, Don, tell me if I'm wrong on this, that those adjustments were automatic. Come to find out that is not always the case. A case in point is our homeowners association where I live. We weren't getting those until I asked a question here this past year, and the agent started looking, realized, hey, we were not getting them on our properties out at Summerwood. So that's why I'm asking that there's nothing that we're aware of that the homeowner has to do to get these discounts.
No, but I mean, that's a good point. And that's something too that maybe we could provide outreach, or even just check with some insurance agents to make sure that people with flood insurance policies are getting that discount currently.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Tupper.
This may be hard for you to answer, Brandy, and if you can, I mean, that's fine. So we got Willow Creek, we got Roby Creek, we got Big Sioux River, we got Lake Compesca, we got Lake Pelican, all within our community. Well, now Lake Pelican, because that's become part of our community. Mm-hmm. If we were in the best rating that you could ever foresee, what do you think that would be with all the, I mean, there's a lot of mitigation there with those bodies of water, so. A 5?
I mean, I think that it's doable to continuously improve the program, but it does just take some additional manpower. Yep. So I think, I mean, for our staff, we might be able to do a Class 6, because that's an additional, I think it has to be 1,500 points, which is quite a few activities. So, I mean, as a goal, every time we have a verification cycle visit, we should strive to have an increase in our rating, but it will just be a balance of being able to allocate the staff time toward it.
One other question, Brandy. Do you feel that, or Heath, whoever can answer this, that, over the last 5-10 years, we've changed our best management practices with developers and stuff and kept a better record of that? I think developers are getting more used to that and being able to work with the city instead of work against it, which is great. Do you think that's played a major role in this, or?
Yes, definitely. It's just the matter of, and kind of twofold with, I think it's helpful that we've really stuck to processes. This program goes, and then keeping things, organized and filed and staying up to date on things. And that goes for, kind of all across the board of what we're overseeing with community development or engineering. I would say, yes, it's improved. It's always, and every year we improve it more.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Bueller.
Thank you, Mayor. Brandy, I would imagine, I would assume that the flood control initiative that we are taking part in right now, with them, actually, did that have a bearing on this reduction?
No. So
I would think that would be a big thing in our favor, that we're working in that direction.
Right. Well, and that will. So if we would get the project done, that would definitely go towards points. But more so, it's just that, because I'd have to look at that, because it's kind of like we should be implementing the activities, especially on this progress report that we show in the pre-disaster mitigation plan. So that would be huge to get that project completed. If I'm following that right on, that we're working with the Army Corps with.
And then just one other thing, I guess I have to agree with Mike a little bit on some sort of metrics to give us an idea of what the true cost savings are. If that's feasible, maybe at our next meeting, if we could discuss that again.
Yeah.
That'd be okay?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that
we can just send the information out if you want.
Well, that'd be okay, but I think the public might want to hear it too. I think so. If we have it in this forum, I believe they'd get some exposure there.
wish that
we can do that. If you want it to be on the agenda for public discussion, I just gotta have two of you tell me to put it on the agenda.
Yeah, can it be just under old business too?
It can be.
We'll figure it out.
If you want it.
Or if I step aside and then browse the files a little more without the pressure if you guys have other things to talk about. Okay.
We'll figure it out for the next meeting. We've got Councilman Paulson, then Councilman Schutte, then back to Councilman Tupper. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Brandy, just going through the list. Obviously, we have high-hanging fruit like the Mahoney Creek Dam. That I think that would go significantly, but a lot of these are replacing storm sewer, upgrading storm sewer, replacing the 3rd Avenue Bridge, improving drainage ways and stuff like that. And that probably comes back on the council a little bit too. If we need to focus on some of these items to make sure that we're improving it for the future. I think you guys do a good job at telling us what you guys want and stuff, but a lot of these things just cost money to do, and so if we have to figure out a way, I'm not saying we are not already doing that, but a lot of these are naturally going to happen anyway with either development, road improvements, but we have a lot of, and I'll use your wording, low-hanging fruit on here that just cost money to do, but they're easy because it's not a big project. It's just either upgrading storm sewer, putting curb and gutter on the street. You know, I think if we can do something too, just let us know, because if we have to prioritize these, and that goes back to Heath as well, some of these to get a better rating in the future to help our constituents get a better rate, I think that's what we should do.
Councilman Shetty?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Hatton, for your work on this. There's a map, it's up a few slides, I believe, that's right, yeah, there you go, right back, there you go. You know, there's a lot of, you know, well, there's a few wards that are affected a little more than others on this with the floodplain. Is this is the updated map, I would assume then, right, in this file for this next go around, next 5 years or whatever it is? Okay. Is this reviewed? Is this the map? Is that a 5-year like with this whole report you're doing here, or is that a 10-year period when they renew the maps? Do you know what the time frame is for that?
This one is 5 years.
This is 5 years. So in 5 years, this will be the standard then for 5 years, and then gets reviewed again. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's. I just wanted to, because I know there's again it's a fair amount of constituents in a couple different wards that it affects. So, all right, thank you.
Yes.
Councilman Tupper?
I agree with Councilman Danforth and Councilman Bueller that, you know, the public is, you know, should be aware of the change in rating. I would think, though, that, you know, we've looked at how many thousands of dollars we spent to help improve this rating as a community. I think this deserves probably a, maybe something with a press release with some of those numbers in, because then we would cover the whole community with the press release, and, you know, maybe go in paper. I know Steve would be lovely back there to just report on this and keep all the public informed, but I think a press release would probably be the best way to go, so.
Any further discussion, council? All right, no action is necessary. Thank you very much, Manager Hatton. Director Von Eye.
Thank you, guys.
We are on to old business. Is there any old business? Any new business? Any liaison member reports? Councilman Villauer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things from the airport board meeting last week. The final numbers for the year as far as employments at our airport were 14,444. That is down somewhat from last year, but keep in mind, put it in perspective, just a few years ago, we were struggling and our goal was to hit 10,000. So we're still blowing the top off that, and hopefully those numbers will increase. But I also want to point out now that as everybody's aware, the public is as well, that we received an essential air service bid from Denver Air Connection here recently, and that is being reviewed. Not ready to come forth with a recommendation yet, but as a result, there was an extension granted to, February 24th, I believe, to make a recommendation back to the DOT. And along those lines, there is a special airport board meeting at 5 o'clock on Thursday. Now, I do have a question. I remember when we went down this road a number of years ago, that generates a fair amount of public interest. I'm looking at our Public Works Director. Is there a Planning Commission meeting Thursday?
There is.
There is. So utilizing the chambers here for that meeting would not be an option. Okay, if that's the case, that meeting is at the airport terminal conference room on Thursday afternoon at 5 o'clock.
Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a comment on that. Just the last few days, I have gotten quite a few calls of people concerned about what route is either going to be taken away or added, or, you know, not everyone or the public is knowing what's going on. There was one, and I'm pretty sure 2 other council members talked to them that they were worried about Denver going away. That's obviously not on the table or being discussed, but I have gotten a lot. Almost every single one said that they would prefer Minneapolis over Chicago for some reason, more so for international travel. But I just wanted to make that comment that the phone calls I've taken in the last few days have all mentioned Minneapolis.
City Manager Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to provide a point of clarification to the community, we make a recommendation, but ultimately it is not our decision. And the airport board and Public Works staff have spent significant time reviewing the bids, excuse me, and have had additional conversations with Denver Air Connection. So when we get to a point where we make a recommendation, just know that it has been a very thoughtful discussion. It's great opportunities, any of the options that were presented, but ultimately, unfortunately, we are not the final decision makers.
Director Von Eye.
I just confirmed with Brandy on the planning commission meeting. It was an on again, off again as far as whether we were going to have anything, and I've just confirmed with her there's not a meeting that night, so I can have the airport board meeting moved to this room so that we can take advantage of the public access for it.
That'd be great if we could do that, because I remember when we went down this road a number of years ago, there was a fair amount of public interest, and we did televise the meeting and invite the public. So, and that's 5 o'clock Thursday afternoon.
Councilman Danforth.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And just as this has come up, and I know we've kind of dealt with this in the past, but there's really an approach that needs to get looked at with this. But historically, the desire for Minneapolis has been all about connectivity, whereas Chicago has been a destination. Is there a way that they can assess what the predicted numbers would be using, going the connectivity route versus the destination route that you get? Because Denver and Chicago are both destinations. There's a lot of people that I talk to go there for 2-3 days because it's good fares. Whereas Minneapolis, people don't fly from Watertown to Minneapolis typically. They go there because they're catching another flight. So is there a way to make that, or to ascertain which one is the benefit to us? Is it, are we looking for boardings period and enplanements? Is that our top goal, or are we talking about quality of the connections, of flight quality? I'm sure if we have less desirable flights, then we lose boardings, right? They go somewhere else anyway. So it's just kind of a conundrum that we have, that Minneapolis is all about connectivity and Chicago and Denver is connectivity, but it's also destination areas.
Yeah, yes to both of that. I think customer satisfaction translates directly to enplanements, which from our perspective, enplanements is the key factor that we have to look at. If we drop below our needed enplanements, we jeopardize our essential air service status. So when we're looking at making a staff recommendation to the board or to the council, that's ultimately what we're looking for, and that's ultimately what our conversations with Denver Air have been around, is how do we extrapolate that data to know that if we go the Minneapolis route, that it would maintain our enplanements or increase them, or if we stay status quo, how do we keep, how do we boost the Chicago route? From a connectivity perspective, I think the argument can be made that you can connect anywhere from Minneapolis that you can from Chicago. They're both large. They both do international flights. This is completely anecdotal, but what I hear from people about Minneapolis is it'd be nice just to be able to fly there. Okay, but are you actually going to fly there and then fly somewhere else, or are you actually going to fly there and stay the day? If you are, we can count that in how we're tracking enplanements and how we're thinking about this. But if it's something that just in theory, it'd be great to just hop on a plane and save the 4-hour drive, but you're not going to actually do it, that doesn't help us. So anyway, Heath probably has a more eloquent response to that, but those are all factors that we are researching as we move through this conversation.
Director Von Eye.
I don't want to steal the liaison's thunder, but I was going to mention that our consultant, Valair, has done an excellent job at compiling information almost specific to the point you're talking about, Councilman Danforth. And what we can do is have them on board with that discussion. We'll have them on board again at the airport board meeting, and then have them online at the council meeting as well when the council considers the recommendation. But they've got a whole bunch of data that they put together. It touches on the destination travel versus the business travel, the fly-through that's otherwise, and the routes that are available, the times that are available, the potential to have a connection to get out of either Chicago or Minneapolis. They've looked at all that in a pretty thorough, expansive way. So it's all good information we can bring to the council as well.
Councilman Villar?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to echo part of what Public Works Director Von I just said, when I first looked at those proposals, I thought, hey, it's pretty cut and dried as far as what our recommendation should be on this. But sitting through the airport board meeting last week, so many other factors were thrown out there that that's the reason why the extension was requested, because there are an awful, like you said, business versus leisure travel, the interline agreements with the airlines, depending upon where you're going, the time of the flights. I mean, there's so many different factors that that need to be considered here. That's why working with staff, working with the consultants with Valair, along with the airport board, just an awful lot of questions that there's no slam dunk as far as recommendation coming out of this. That's why we want to take the time at a special airport board meeting to review this more fully. Because there are a lot of factors to consider.
Thank you. Any other liaison member reports? Any announcements? We do have a reason to go into executive session pursuant to SDCL 125-2. It is for a contractual discussion, but we will not be taking action when we come out. Therefore, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Councilman Schutte, seconded by Councilman Danforth. Yeah. Motion for executive session, sorry. Motion for executive session. Do I still have you two? Okay. Then we will adjourn when we come out, but we will not be taking action. So thank you. All those in favor of going into executive session, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries.